Welcome to Pastor Andrew's Inspirations. If you enjoy these videos, please click on the red subscribe button below and the bell for more. Welcome to our online church, a congregation made up of many from around the world. No offering is necessary. Subscribing and watching videos will keep us alive under God's watchful eyes. Today we will be learning part 6 of 8 in our series on biblical names, starting with E. Ephron. Ephron the Hittite, son of Zohar, lived in Mamre among the children of Heth. Abraham comes to the Hittites, which are strangers to him, and asks them to sell him a property that he can use as a burial site. The Hittites, flattering Abraham by calling him a mighty prince, says that he can choose whichever tomb he wants. In Genesis chapter 23, verses 1 to 8, Abraham then asked them to contact Ephron, son of Zohar, who owns the cave of Machpelah, which he is offering to buy for the full price. Ephron slyly replies that he is prepared to give Abraham the field and the cave within, knowing that would not result in Abraham having a permanent claim of it. Abraham politely refuses the offer and insists on paying for the field in its entirety. Ephron replies that the field is worth 400 shekels of silver. Abraham agrees to the price without any further bargaining. He is then proceeded to bury his dead wife Sarah there, in Genesis chapter 23, verses 9 to 20. Er. In the biblical book of Genesis, Er, meaning watcher, was the eldest son of Judah and his wife, who was Canaanite, the daughter of Shua. He is described as marrying Tamar. According to the text, the Lord slew Er because he was wicked. It does not give any further details. According to Rashi, he, like Onan, purposely tried to keep Tamar from conceiving. In his case, because he was afraid of spoiling her beauty. This Er had two brothers, Onan and Shelah. The book of Chronicles chapter 4 verse 21 lists another Er as being one of Shelah's sons. Some modern Bible critics interpret the story of Er as a myth to explain fluctuations in the constituency of the tribe of Judah, with the abrupt death of Er reflecting the death of a clan. The presence of an Er as a descendant of Shelah in the book of Chronicles suggests that Er was in reality the name of a clan that was originally equal in status to the Shelah clan, but was later subsumed by it, or subsumed. The brother Onan may represent an Edomite clan named Onam, who are mentioned in an Edomite genealogy in Genesis. Er's role in the narrative would thus be as the background to the main plot, his death being the reason for the levirate marriage to become an issue. Erastus. Erastus of Corinth, also known as Erastus of Panaeus, held the political office of steward in Corinth. According to the epistle to the Romans, chapter 16, verse 23 of the New Testament, the office is defined as the manager of household, or of household affairs, or, in this context, treasurer. The King James Version uses the translation chamberlain, while the New International Version uses director of public works. A person named Erastus, mentioned in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 20, and Acts chapter 19, verse 22, is often taken to be the same person. The Erastus mentioned in the second letter to Timothy may be the same person as well, but it is unlikely that the Erastus referred to in the book of Acts is the same Erastus. This Erastus was a traveling companion of the Apostle Paul and accompanied him on his third missionary journey. It was on this third expedition that Paul penned the letter to the Roman believers in which he sent greetings from Erastus, the city treasurer. He could not have been the person in Paul's entourage. The Apostle Paul wrote his letter to the church in Rome while he was in Corinth. Erastus is numbered among the 70 disciples. He served as a deacon and steward of the church at Jerusalem, and later of Paneas in Palestine. The church remembers St. Erastus on January 4th among the 70, and on November the 10th. And having sent into Macedonia 2 of his helpers, Timothy and Erastus, he himself stayed in Asia for a while. Gaius, who is host to me and to the whole church, greets you. Erastus, the city treasurer, and our brother Quartus greet you. Erastus remained at Corinth, and I left Trophimus, who was ill, at Miletus. In 1929, an inscription mentioning an Erastus was found near a paved area northeast of the theater of Corinth. It has been dated to the mid-1st century and reads, Erastus, in return for his aedileship, paved it at his own expense. This ideal Erastus could be the Erastus mentioned in the epistle to the Romans. This debate has implications related to the social status of the members of the Pauline churches. Eri. In Genesis chapter 46, verse 16, Eri is the son of Gad. He was the progenitor of the Erites. In Numbers chapter 26, verse 16. Esaias, also known as Isaiah, God is salvation, or Yah is salvation. Esaias was the 8th century BC Israelite prophet after whom the book of Isaiah is named. Within the text of the book of Isaiah, Isaiah himself is referred to as the prophet. But the exact relationship between the book of Isaiah and the actual prophet Isaiah is complicated. The traditional view is that all 66 chapters of the book of Isaiah were written by one man. Isaiah possibly in 2 periods between 740 BC and 686 BC, separated by approximately 15 years. And that the book includes dramatic, prophetic declarations of Cyrus the Great in the Bible, acting to restore the nation of Israel from Babylonian captivity. Esar-haddon. Esar-haddon, meaning Ashur has given me a brother, was the king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire from the death of his father Sennacherib in 681 BC to his own death in 666 BC. The third king of the Esar-haddon dynasty. Esar-haddon is most famous for his conquest of Egypt in 671 BC, which made his empire the largest the world had ever seen, and for his reconstruction of Babylon, which had been destroyed by his father. After Sennacherib's eldest son and heir, Ashur-nadin-shumi, had been captured and presumably executed in 694, the new heir had originally been the second eldest son, Arda-malizu, but in 684, Esar-haddon, a younger son, was appointed instead. Angered by this decision, Arda-malizu and another brother, Nabushehr, murdered their father in 681 and planned to seize the Assyrian throne. The murder and Arda-malizu's aspirations of becoming king himself made Esar-haddon's rise to the throne difficult, and he first had to defeat his brothers in a 6-week-long civil war. His brother's attempted coup had been unexpected and troublesome for Esar-haddon, and he would be plagued by paranoia and mistrust for his officials, governors, and male family members until the end of his reign. As a result of this paranoia, most of the places used by Esar-haddon were high security fortifications located outside of the major population centers of the cities. Also, perhaps resulting from his mistrust for his male relatives, Esar-haddon's female relatives, such as his mother Nakiah and his daughter Saruah-etera, were allowed to wield considerable more influence and power during his reign than women had been allowed in any previous period of Assyrian history. Despite a relatively short and difficult reign, and being plagued by paranoia, depression, and constant illness, Esar-haddon remains recognized as one of the greatest and most successful Assyrian kings. He quickly defeated his brothers in 681, completed ambitious and large-scale building projects in both Assyria and Babylonia, successfully campaigned in Media, the Arab Peninsula, Anatolia, the Caucasus, and the Levant, defeated and conquered Lower Egypt, and ensured a peaceful transition of power to his two heirs, Ashurbanipal and Shamash-shumukin, after his death. Esau. Esau is the elder son of Isaac in the Hebrew Bible. He is mentioned in the book of Genesis and by the prophets Obadiah and Malachi. The Christian New Testament alludes to him in the epistle to the Romans and in the epistle to the Hebrews. According to the Hebrew Bible, Esau is the progenitor of the Edomites and the elder brother of Jacob, the patriarch of the Israelites. Esau was the son of Isaac and Rebekah, and the grandson of Abraham and Sarah. Esau was the first to be born of twins. Isaac was 60 years old when Esau was born. Esau, a man of the field, became a hunter who had rough qualities that distinguished him from his twin brother. Among these qualities were his redness and noticeable hairiness. Throughout Genesis, Esau is frequently shown as being supplanted by his younger twin, Jacob. According to the Muslim tradition, the prophet Yaqub, or Israel, was the favorite of his mother, and Esau was the favorite of his father, prophet Ishaq. He is mentioned in the story of Yaqub in Quisus, Al, and Bia. Genesis chapter 25 verse 25 narrates Esau's birth. Now the first came forth red, all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. The meaning of the word Esau itself is not entirely certain. The name Edom is also attributed to Esau, meaning red. The same color used to describe the color of the hairs of Esau. Genesis parallels his redness to the red lentil pottage that he sold to his birthright for Esau became the progenitor of the Edomites in Seir. In Genesis, Esau returned to his twin brother Jacob, famished from the fields. He begs Jacob to give him some red pottage. This refers to his red hair. Jacob offers Esau a bowl of lentil stew in exchange for Esau's birthright, the right to be recognized as the first son with authority over the family, and Esau agrees. Thus Jacob acquires Esau's birthright. This is the origin of the English phrase to sell one's birthright for a mess of pottage. In Genesis chapter 27 verses 1 to 40, Jacob uses deception motivated by his mother Rebekah to lay claim to his blind father Isaac's blessing that was inherently due to the firstborn Esau. In Genesis chapter 27 verses 5 to 7, Rebekah is listening while Isaac speaks to his son Esau. When Esau goes to the field to hunt for venison to bring home, Rebekah says to her son Jacob, "Behold, I heard thy father speak to thy brother Esau, saying, Bring me venison, and prepare a savory food, that I may eat, and bless thee before the Lord, before my death." Rebekah then instructs Jacob in an elaborate deception through which Jacob pretends to be Esau, in order to steal from Esau his blessing from Isaac and his inheritance, which in theory Esau had already agreed to give to Jacob. Jacob follows through with the plan to steal his brother's birthright by bringing the meal his father Isaac requested and pretending to be Esau. Jacob pulled off his disguise by covering himself in hairy lambskin, so that when his father went to touch him, his smooth skin did not give him away as an impostor of his hairy brother. Jacob successfully received his father's Isaac's blessing. As a result, Jacob becomes the spiritual leader of the family after Isaac's death, and the heir of the promises of Abraham in Genesis chapter 27, verse 37. When Esau learns of his brother's thievery, he is livid and begs his father to undo the blessing. Isaac responds to his eldest son's plea by saying that he only had one blessing to give, and that he could not reverse the sacred blessing. Esau, furious and vows to kill Jacob. He's filled with rage in Genesis chapter 27, verse 41. Once again, Rebekah intervenes to save her younger son from being murdered by his elder twin brother Esau. Therefore, at Rebekah's urging, Jacob flees to the distant land to work for his uncle Laban in Genesis chapter 28, verse 5. Jacob does not immediately receive his father's inheritance after the impersonation aimed at taking it from Esau. Having fled for his life, Jacob has left the wealth of Isaac's flocks, land, and tents in Esau's hands. Jacob is forced to sleep out on the open ground and then work for wages as a servant in Laban's household. Jacob, who had deceived and cheated his brother, is in turn deceived and cheated by his uncle. Jacob asks to marry Laban's daughter Rachel, whom he has met at the well, and Laban agrees, if Jacob will give him 7 years of service. Jacob does so, but after the wedding finds that beneath the veil is not Rachel, but Leah, Laban's elder daughter. He agrees to work another 7 years, and Jacob and Rachel are finally wed. However, despite Laban, Jacob eventually becomes so rich as to incite the envy of Laban and Laban's sons. Genesis chapters 32 and 33 tells of Jacob and Esau's eventual reconciliation. Jacob sends multiple waves of gifts to Esau as they approach each other, hoping that Esau will spare his life. Esau refuses the gifts, and he is now very wealthy and does not need them. Jacob never apologizes to Esau for his actions. Jacob nevertheless bows down before Esau and insists on his receiving the gifts. Esau shows forgiveness in spite of his bitter conflict. After this, God confirms his renaming of Jacob as Israel. Eshbal. Eshbal was, according to the Hebrew Bible, the second monarch of the United Kingdom of Israel, who succeeded his father, Saul. In the biblical account, Abner, the captain of Saul's army, proclaimed Ishbosheth king over Israel at Mahanaim in Transjordan. In 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 8. After the slaying of Ishbosheth's father and brothers in the battle of Gilboa, in 1 Samuel chapter 31. Ishbosheth was 40 years old at this time and reigned for 2 years. However, after the death of King Saul, the tribe of Judah seceded from the rule of the house of Saul by proclaiming David as its king, and war ensued in 2 Samuel chapter 2. David's faction eventually prevailed against Ishbosheth, but the war did not come to a close until Abner joined David. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, before the death of Saul, David had been married to Saul's daughter, Michal, Ishbosheth's sister, until Saul and David had a falling out, and Saul gave her to another. In 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 44, later at the conclusion of the war with Ishbosheth, David's terms for peace required returning Michal to him, and Ishbosheth complied. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, after Abner's death, Ishbosheth seems to have given up hope of retaining power. 2 of Ishbosheth's own army captains, Reshab and Banah, assassinate the deposed king, expecting a reward for David because of this. David, however, refused to give any commendation for high treason. He had both killers executed and their hands and feet cut off. David's supporters buried the head of Ishbosheth in Abner's grave at Hebron in 2 Samuel chapter 4. Eshban. Eshban is a name found in a genealogy in Genesis and Chronicles. In both genealogies, Eshban is identified as the son of Dishon, the son of Anah, the son of Zabean, the son of Ser the Horite. The name refers to a Horite clan. Eshcol, one of the 3 Amorite confederates of Abraham in the Hebron area, who with his brothers Mamre and Aner joined forces with those of Abraham in pursuit of King Chedorlaomer and his armies, who had taken Abram's nephew Lot and others as captives in Genesis chapter 14. Eshek. Eshek is a name which appears only once in the Hebrew Bible, in a genealogy of the tribe of Benjamin. The text of Chronicles identifies him as the brother of Azel. Eshtemoa, a son of Ishbah, a town inhabited by Ishbah's descendants, a descendant of Bethiah, princess of Egypt, and married in 1 Chronicles chapter 4. This is part 6 of the biblical names starting with E. Please stay with us for part 7. If you enjoy these videos, click on the button below, in the corner, and the bell for more. Adonai Nisi, the Lord is our banner. God's blessings be upon us all.